Welcome back to Globesweeper Hex Puzzler. Today we're gonna start off by looking at Snake, which I wanted to have in the same video as the box, but the box is one hell of a level and took far too long to do, so Snake will have to be in this video, and I should have time for something more than Snake, but maybe not, who knows. Let's get into it. So, we have a line level with not clues and group clues. So because we have line clues, press the X button on your keyboard to mark all of the lines at the same time, and then as we complete a line, we'll just unmark each one by clicking on them, just so we keep track of which lines are completed and which ones are not, when you have to look at lines going across the screen and stuff like that. So, right here we have a 1, which is already done, and a 0, and now our challenge begins with this line. So this level has line clues with not clues and group clues in the same lines. So right here we have the exclamation mark for not, 1, squiggly bracket or curly bracket for group. So in this line we can not have one group of tiles. We could have no group of tiles, we could have 2 groups of tiles, or we could have more. But how many groups can we have in this area? Can we have no group? That would mean we have no tile marked, but then this one needs 1 tile here, so that's not possible. We can't have no group in these 4 tiles. Can we have 2 groups? Yes, we can. Can we have more than 2? No, we cannot. It is not possible to add more than 2 groups in 4 tiles. We would need 5 tiles in order to have 3 groups total, separated by at least 1 gap. So here we could have 2 groups, either this tile and this tile, or this tile and this tile, or this tile and this tile. In theory, we could have these 2 and this one would also be 2 groups, but we can't because this is only a 1 here. So, because of this, since we'll have one of these tiles marked, adding 1 group to this line, we also have to have at least 1 tile of these 2 to make a second separate group. Because of that, that will complete this one, so this tile cannot be marked. If we were to remove this one, mark this one rather, these tiles would be removed, and then we're left with only 1 tile here in 1 group. So that tile is removed, and now we can complete this 3, and the 1 is complete, and this one gets marked. Now, this tile cannot be marked, because that would complete the 1 and remove this tile, and then this line would be left with only 1 group. So that has to be removed, and this one is marked. Now we look at this line here, we need not 1 group. We only have 2 tiles remaining, so we can't add only 1 tile. We can't add both tiles, because if we do, that's still just 1 group. So there's no way to add 2 groups in just these 2 touching neighboring tiles. So since we can't add 2 or more groups, we can't have 1 group, we have to have no group, and because of that we have to remove both of the tiles. And then this 3 needs this tile, and the 2 here is done. And now we look at this line here. This line needs not 2 groups, and not 3 groups on this side. So we can't have 2 groups, and we can't have 3 groups. We can't have no group because we already have tiles, and we already have 2 groups, so we can't have 1 group. So we have to add, since we now have 2 groups, we have to add at least 1 more group to make it 3 groups, but then for this one we need to add at least 1 more to make it 4 groups. So we now have to add enough tiles to make 4 separate groups. And how can we do that? We have 1 here, we have 2 here. If we add this tile, it's not a new group at all. So if we skip over this one, we can add this one for a 3rd group. And then if we skip over one, we can add this one for a 4th group. And that is the maximum amount of allotted tiles. We have to use all available tiles and disconnect each one in order to have 4 separated groups in this line. This 2 is now done, and the 4 here, and now we look at this line, which has not 1 group. We already have 1 group, so it can't be no group. We have to add in at least 1 group. And how do we do that? This tile doesn't add a new group, it's still part of the same old one, and this tile also doesn't add a new group, it's still attached to the same one. So the only tile here is the one that will add another group. So we have to mark this tile, and then we have to disconnect this tile. Well, we can already see this 2 disconnects that, and this 2 disconnects that. But this tile would have to be disconnected regardless, because otherwise it's just 1 group again. Now, we don't know if this tile is marked or not. We could have, that's still part of 1 group, it would still be 2 groups. So this one, can't say anything about, we have to leave that for now. Now I believe we look at this line here. Here we need not 4 groups and also not 3 groups. We already have 2 groups. If we were to add any amount of tiles in these 3 tiles, what would happen? If we add 1 tile, then we've now made a 3rd group, which doesn't work, so we have to add at least 1 more group. So we can add 1 here and 1 here. Now we have 4 groups, which doesn't work for this one. We would have to add 1 more, but we're out of tiles. We can't add 5 separate groups, so because of that, we can't add any tiles here. We have to just have these 2 groups that we already have. So these tiles are all removed, and this line is completed. This 2 needs these 2 tiles. And now we look at this line here. This line needs not 1 group and not 2 groups. It could have had no group, but since we already have a tile, that's out of the question. So now we cannot have only 1, so we can't remove all the remaining tiles. We have to add in at least 1 more group. But if we add 1 more group, say here, then we have 2 groups, and that doesn't work either. We have to add 2 more groups to get 3 or more. And we can't add more than 3, we can only add 1 here, 2 here, 3, and this one is still part of the same one. So we have to add these 2 tiles to get 2 more separate groups, and then disconnect this tile, and then we don't know if this one is part of, if this one is marked or not, because it's still part of the same group. But this 2 is now completed, this 2 is completed, this 1 is completed, and this 3 needs this tile marked. Now, this line is done, and, well, we can't unmark this one quite yet. So there we go. Now, we can look at this line, which needs not 1 group. Because we've already marked 1 tile, that means we can't have no group here, so the only option is to add another group and make it 2 groups. And the only way to add a new group is to add this tile, and then remove this tile. The 2 here is done, and the 1 here is done. Now, well, this line is done. Now, yeah, okay, now we look at this line here. Here we need not 4 groups and not 5 groups. We have 1, 2, and 3 groups already. So, same as before with this line, if we add any tile here, like let's say this one, then we've now added a 4th group, which doesn't work for the tile down there. We need to add at least 1 more in that case, and the only way to add another one is to use this tile. We can have at most 2 more tiles here, 2 more groups here, but then that would be 5 groups, which doesn't work either. And we don't have enough tiles to add 6 groups total, so we have to remove all 3 tiles. It's not possible to add any of these tiles, or it clashes with both of these not group clues. So these tiles are all removed. Now, what do we do again? Sorry, I'm a little bit, like, I forget what you have to do at this point. Well, I mean, we can skip over this right now for a little bit, and instead just look at this tile here. I'm really, like, stumbling over my words here. So in this line, we cannot have 0 groups, and we cannot have 1 group. So we can't remove all the tiles, we can't add 1 group, we have to add at least 2 or more groups, and 2 groups are all we can add here out of the 3 tiles. So we have to mark these 2 tiles, and we have to disconnect the middle tile. Now, yeah, that didn't really help. I guess we just look at this one right away. Oh yeah, right. I remembered. That was kind of a pointless diversion, or whatever, pointless, like, alternate path. Instead, we can look at this one or this one. But this is kind of a tricky point here, so I should have gone in here first. Here, we need not 1 group, and we have 3 tiles remaining. So what are our options? We can have no group, we can remove all 3. If we add 1 tile, then we have 1 group, and that doesn't work. We have to, in that case, add another group. And the only way to add 2 groups in these 3 tiles is to have the center tile removed and these 2 tiles marked. That is a possibility, and we have 2 options. Either remove all tiles or mark these 2 tiles. In both situations, we have to remove this center tile. If we mark this center tile, there is no more way to add a 2nd group to not have only 1 group in this line. So this center tile has to be removed, whether these 2 are removed or marked. It doesn't matter. And that now gives us a 4 with only 4 tiles, so we can mark all of them. Now completing this line, and now we can look at this clue. Here we cannot have 2 groups, and we cannot have 3 groups. We have 1 group so far, that's all well and good. This tile now cannot be marked, because then we make it 2 groups and there is no other way to add another group. And even if we could, we would add 3 groups, so that wouldn't work anyway. So this tile can't be marked, we have to remove this tile. And add this one, and this one for the 1 and 2. Now, we can't say anything about this tile yet, but we can look at this line here. So right here, we have a group of not 2 groups, or line of not 2 groups, and a line of not 3 groups. So we already have 2 groups, that doesn't work. If we add another group, we have to do it with this tile, but then we have three groups, and we can't add a 4th group. So we can't add any more groups at all, we have to in fact go backwards. We have to combine these 2 tiles into only 1 group, or this line doesn't work. And the only way to do that is to add all 3 tiles and just connect up every single line, every single tile in this line. Sorry, I feel like I explained that poorly, but yeah, they have to connect. Now, this one we can't say anything about yet. This line is done. Shit, what is it now? I'm kind of blanking. This one probably? Yeah, right, okay. We have a tile now here. So now we look at this line. We need not 1 group, and here we need not 2 groups. We already have 1 group, which means we can't have no group at all. And I mean, we couldn't in the first place, because we need to mark at least one of these 2 tiles for the 5. But regardless, we have 1 group already. We need to add at least 1 more. Let's say we add this tile. Then we have 2 groups, which means we need to add at least 1 more. And the only way to add 2 groups here is to use this tile and this tile. This tile is irrelevant. Whether we remove it or add it, it doesn't change the group count. So these 2 tiles have to be marked to make 3 groups to comply with the not 1 and the not 2. And then this tile has to be removed, or we only have 2 groups again. This 2 is now done. This 3 needs these 2. And now we can complete this little area. The 5 here is done, and the 3 is done, and this 1. And now we look at this line, which is the unique line here. This one is not a group clue. This is just a tile clue. We cannot have 3 tiles in this line. We have 2 tiles already. If we mark this final tile, then we marked 3 tiles in this line, and that doesn't work. So we have to delete this tile. And this 2 line, 2 group line is now done. This 2 is done here, and the 1 here. And now here, we cannot have 2 groups here. We already have 1. So if we add this tile, we would just add 2 groups, and we can't do anything about that. So this tile has to be removed. And this tile is now marked for this 1. And we can just solve these normally, just normal tiles here. And now, it's just the final stretch here. We look at this line here. We cannot have 3 groups, also this line is done. 3 groups, we cannot have 3 groups, and same on this side. We have 2 groups already. These 2 tiles, whether we add one or the other or both, will only add a maximum of 1 group. So since we have 2 groups, we can't add either of these tiles, or we make it 3 groups. So both of them have to be removed, which now gives us a 2 here, and we can mark these 2. Now, we look at this line here, and we have a not 2 group here. We already have 2 groups, so that doesn't work. We have to rectify this by either making it only 1 group, or making it more groups. But we can't add another group. We would need a tile in between these 2, because this one is connected to this group, and this one is connected to this group. So we cannot add a 3rd group in this line. The only way to solve this one is to make it just 1 group, and the only way to do that is to connect up all of the tiles that we've marked. Now we look at this tile here, this line, not 2 groups. We have 1 group already, so we can't mark this tile, or we make it 2 groups, so this one is gone. Now we look at this line, since we just removed this tile. In these 3 tiles, we cannot have 0 groups, so we can't remove all of them. We also can't have 1 group, so we can't add only 1 or 2 connecting ones. So we need to add 2 groups in 3 tiles. So the only way to do that is to use this and this tile with the center removed. And the 2 here is now done. And then finally, this line. in this line out of these two tiles. We cannot mark one of them. We can't have only one group, so this one or this one on themselves, on their own, can't be marked. But we also can't have two groups, so we can't add both of them. So we can't add one, we can't add both, we have to remove both tiles to have 0 groups. And there we go. Pretty lengthy still, but yeah, I think we have time for Pent to Pentagon. I really wanted to like do these two because they were kind of similar, and then do these two, but alas, that's not gonna happen. Let's just start with Pent to Pentagon right now. This one is not too bad, I remember. It's not a very hard level. So this one is just area clues and cluster tiles, I think it was. So we start off by looking at this 8 here. In this area, we need 8 tiles. Out of these 5, we need 3 tiles. Out of these 4, we need 1 tile. So that's 4 total, and none of them overlap. So in these tiles, we have 4 tiles, and then we need 4 more. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have to mark all of these tiles. That now gives us a 2 cluster, which is already complete. We already have 2 tiles in this cluster, so we have to disconnect all connecting tiles, or we would, if we mark any of them, we make this a 3 cluster instead. So all of these are disconnected, and now we can just solve this 3, and this 1 is done, and this 1 needs this. Now, we need to break out into the next ring over, and to do that, we look at this 4, which already has 4 tiles marked, so none of these tiles can be marked, we can remove all of them. This 2 needs these 2 tiles, this 2 needs these 2 tiles. Now, we look at this 7 here, we have to like skip over into another layer here. We'll jump back and forth between layers quite a lot in this one. So here, we have 2 tiles, we need to add 5 more tiles, and we only have 5 more tiles. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That now gave us a 4 cluster, which also is already complete, so we have to disconnect all tiles surrounding it. And then here we have a 3 with 2, so we have to add this, and we can't go further right there. But here we have a 2 that's completed, and this 2 needs this tile, and this 2 needs this tile. Now this area clue already has 2, so we can't mark any tiles in this area. This 2 needs these 2 tiles, this 2 needs these 2 tiles. Now here, we have a 3 cluster with 2 tiles, so we can only add one more cluster, one more tile to this cluster, either this tile or this tile. In either case, whether we go here or here, we cannot mark this tile because it's connected to both of our available options. If we mark this tile, there's no way of completing this 3 without making it a 4 cluster. So since we have one of these 2 tiles, we can't mark this tile. This will come up quite a lot in this level and many other levels, so I'll probably just gloss over it in the future. So, right here, we need 3 tiles out of these 4, but we only need one of these 2 tiles for the 3 cluster, which means we have 1 here, and for this 3, we'll need 2 and 3. Because of that, we now can't use this tile, or we connect this up to a 5 cluster. So this one has to be removed, and this one has to be marked. Now, we can look at this 3 or this 4, doesn't matter, let's look at the 4 to begin with, which has 4 tiles already, so these 4 tiles cannot be marked. This 2 needs these 2 tiles, this 1 is now done, this 3 needs these 3 tiles. So let's move on from here, and let's go over here instead. Here we have 3 tiles already marked, so these are all removed. And then here, let's not jump over to this layer or ring yet. Here we need 3, so this has to be marked. The 2 here is done, the 1 is done, and the 3 is done. I guess we'll continue on here, so 2 in this area, we already have 2, so all of these are removed once again. Let's stick to this ring for as much as we can, so these 2 are marked, and that's about it. Now, let's go over here again where we left off stuff. This 2 needs these tiles, the 1 here is done, the 3 needs these tiles, and this 4 cluster now has 3 tiles. We cannot mark this tile, or we connect it up to these 2 tiles, which would make it a 6 cluster, so this tile has to be removed, which gives us a 2 that's already done, so these tiles are removed, and this tile is the final one for the 4 cluster. Now on this side of the thing, we have 1 tile for this 2, we need 2, so that's marked, and then over here we have 2 tiles here, and the 1 here is done, and the 3 cluster here has only 1 tile. We have to go in this direction for 2, which completes this 2, then disconnects that tile, and then we have to go here for this 3 cluster, which now completes it, and completes this 3. Now, I guess we just move inward. We can, yeah, we can just look at this one, I think. No, not that one. Yeah, here's where it gets a little scatterbrainy, where I can't quite remember what you do. I think it might have been like the 9 cluster somewhere. Ah, here we go. This one, right here. This is on the first side with the 8 area. This 5, since we added these tiles and completed the 7 area, we now have 5 tiles in this area, so none of these can be marked. This 2 needs these 2 marked. This 5 is now complete with 5 tiles, so this tile can't be marked. The 2 here is done, and the 0. This 2 needs 2 more tiles. And now this 4 is done, so these tiles are disconnected. And 2 tiles here for this 2. And this doesn't tell us anything quite yet. I think we have to leave that for now. Is it this one now? Yeah. Yeah, it's this one. So this 9 now. We have 1 tile, we need to add 8 more. How many can we add? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9. We can only add 1 tile here because this 2 already has 1 tile and will only have 1 of these. So all of these tiles have to be marked. 1 of these tiles will be marked, completing the 2, so this tile can't be marked. Which now gives us a 3 here with only 3 tiles, so all of them are marked, and this 2 is completed. We can look at either one. Let's look at this layer, I suppose. The 9 here already has 9 tiles total, right? Yeah, 9, it's already done, so disconnected from all other tiles. This 1 is done, the 2 here needs these 2 tiles, and I think we can probably look at this one now. This 11 has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have to mark all tiles in this area. Now, this central 7 has 5 tiles, 7 tiles, and these 3 tiles have to be removed. And this 4 here has 2, 3, and 4, so these 3 tiles are also removed. Now we can go back to this 3 here, which has 2 tiles and 3 tiles, so none of these tiles can be marked. This 3 needs 1 more, this 2 needs 1 more, and once again we have a cluster of 3 with 2 tiles in it, so once again we can use this tile or this tile. Either way, the tile connected to both of them cannot be marked, and we can remove that. Which gives us a 1 now, and because we have a 1, we know one of these tiles will be marked for the 3 cluster, so this tile cannot be marked. That didn't give us much, but now we can look at this. No, we can't. That 4 is useless. Never mind. I think we just have to leave this for now, but this 2 needs 1 more tile here, so that's fine. Yeah, we can actually solve this right now, so let's do that. So this 7 cluster has 2 tiles. We need to add 5 more tiles in this area for it. And we can only use, for the 7, we can only use 1 of these 2 tiles, right? If we use this tile, then this is disconnected. If we use this tile, then these 2 are disconnected. So the 7 can at most use 1 of these 2 tiles. So how many tiles do we have available for the 7? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we need to use 1 of these 2 tiles. So we have to use all available tiles for the 7, and then 1 of these 2 tiles, which will complete the 1, so this tile can't be marked. Now that gives us this tile for the 3 cluster and this 1, completing this 2, so this tile is removed, and this tile is the final tile for the 7 area. Now, this one we can't say anything about quite yet. This 4 tile here, which we removed with a 3 area before, needs 2 more. And once again, we have a similar situation. We have a 5 cluster with 4 tiles. We can use this tile or this tile, both of which border this tile, so this tile can't be marked. We have to remove it. And now, once again, we get a 1. We know 1 of these tiles will be marked, so this 1 will be done, and these tiles can't be marked. Here we have a 2 with only 2 tiles available, which completes this 1 and this 1. So there we go. Not too challenging. That's a hell of a lot easier than both the box and snake, I would say. I think star power was also relatively easy, and I think I was planning on doing knotted afterwards, and that's also not that hard. Something like that, but we'll see. I'm gonna end it off there for today. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you some other time in some other level. Bye-bye!